Hi, I'm Jason Debley, and tonight's whiskey review is from the Bowmore Distillery. It's Bowmore Number 1. Now, Bowmore Number 1 doesn't have an age statement. Bowmore 12-year-old. I had a bottle recently. It's empty. It's good. It's a classic introduction to Islay whiskey. It's fairly mild. Islay whiskeys typically are more peated, more smoky than, say, a Speyside or a lowland whiskey, though there are exceptions in some peated whiskeys in at least the Speyside region. I like Bowmore Number 12. It's approachable, price is right, and so when Bowmore Number 1 came on the market, or in my area, which is just recently, I had to grab a bottle. I got an acquaintance at work, or a friend, Greg, and he likes Bowmore Number 1, so I thought I would review it tonight. In the product lineup, besides Number 1 and the 12-year-old, there's a 15-year-old and an 18 and a 25, and I think the 15 is called Bowmore Darkest, or at least it used to be. I didn't like that one. That tried to use sherry casks, and it just didn't seem to work for me. It's very tricky for an Islay whiskey to be overly sherried, I find. So, let's get into this. 40% alcohol by volume, no age statement. We got some chill filtration going on, and half the bottle's gone. So I got a little story to tell you about Mr. Bowmore Number 1. It's, in terms of wood management, it's exclusively matured in first fill bourbon casks. So no sherry cask aging at all, which is not entirely surprising. When I bought this bottle, like 1 week ago, I opened it last Saturday afternoon with a friend. Just pulled the cork, poured a dram, waited a few minutes, and had a sip. And I didn't like it. Tasted very spirity and hot. And I was really disappointed. Like the whiskey, the malt making up this single malt was very youthful, had a bit of a bite, and like I said, heat and spirit notes. And my friend tried it and he agreed. You know, this is like bottom shelf stuff. So I came back to it today to review, and I thought that would be the conclusion. I had a little sip before I rolled the tape here. And what was interesting was oxidation. So with the bottle open for a week, about half full, I didn't drink much of it. My friend drank a whole bunch of it. He thought it was passable. You know, I would go for a blended whiskey like Chivas 12 over this any day of the week, or Johnny Walker Black 12-year-old. Although this is a no age statement, for the price point, you can buy both of those age statement blends, and they taste better. But when I came back to this whiskey a week later with the oxidation, it tasted better. Surprisingly better. On the nose, we'll start with the nose, but the spirit and the heated notes are still there, but they're much more muted. And for the cheap price, this is not expensive single malt. This is like a real entry-level price point for single malt. It's getting closer to, you know, where I'm starting to like it. But the first experience with pulling the cork was so negative for me, I'm not sure I would buy this again. But let's start with the nose and see where we go. So on the nose, I detect like a medicinal, bandages and ointment, like if you're a child and you get an abrasion out, you skin your knees or your elbows when you fall off your bike, and your mother puts some ointment that smells really bad and then puts a bandage on. I get that note, but in a pleasant way, which is typical of Islay malts. Salt, brine, heavy sea air. The nose is good. Like, the nose is your classic Islay malt, and hints at like an aged malt, but when we get to the palate, there's no confusion. On the palate, immediately I taste like lemon seed, and very youthful, a spearmint Wrigley's gum kind of a note. It's a little more tame than when I first opened the bottle. So immediately I know I'm dealing with young whiskey, which disappoints. Limes, vanilla, ginger coming through on the finish, vanilla extract, mid-palate. But there's that heat and that youth. It's more subtle and restrained. In terms of smokiness, kind of like cigarette smoke as opposed to cigar. It's young. The nose on this is better than the palate. And usually with whiskey, if you have good aromas coming off, it foreshadows a good experience in terms of taste. Here, it's a letdown. It's tasting okay. I can see how some people would like this. But certainly, you need to leave that bottle. You need to open it, maybe just pull a cork, put the cork back on, leave it for a week and come back to it so it's oxidized a bit, and it'll taste better. At least that's been my experience. And my friend who was with me when we opened it, he found it really kind of rough and bitter and biting. So, of course you can add a little water to it. Just going to alter the nose, but more importantly we want to see what it does to the palate. Makes it different, makes it a little more interesting. In general, Bowmore number 1 doesn't excite me, even though the price is cheap. It's a replacement for Bowmore Small Batch. That was the predecessor to this. I just can't really recommend it. At this price point, I can buy Chivas Regal 12, Johnny Walker Black 12. I'm going to go for those. But really what I would do if I want an Islay malt and I want that peat and malt and smoke experience, but I don't want to be overwhelmed in a Lafrague or Ardbeg fashion, I would go to Bowmore number 12, which I think is about $10 more, and it just delivers everything. It's smooth, it's interesting, it's nuanced, and it won't break the bank. Thanks for tuning in. Been playing a lot of golf, so not been doing a lot of whiskey reviews. Cheers, and hope you're having a great summer.